Hello, welcome back. Good morning. Yesterday's class we learnt inline functions. Why do we need inline functions? And we did two programs. Then we started with friend functions. Why do we need friend functions? And how is it different than the class function? The general syntax of it, how to call it, and how to access the private data of the class. All this we did, and we also did one program, that is the bank details, printing the bank details of a customer using friend functions. So here only one class is there, that is bank details, and we had one friend function. So yesterday I also told you that the same function can be a friend to more than one class. So how do we do that? Yesterday we did this. Today we will be doing this program. So what is that? Create a class to hold information of father and another for mother. So here you will have two classes, father and mother. Using friend function, you need to calculate the total salary of the family. So in the father's class, you will be taking in the salary of the father, and in the mother's class, you will be taking in the salary of your mother. Then you will have a function total, which will be a friend to both father and mother. So how would I do that? Like, how will I declare a function as a friend to both, and how will I access that? We'll do it now. Hopefully you have understood the statement of the program. Here you have two classes and you will have one friend function which is a friend to both the classes, so that using that same function you will be able to access the data of both the classes. And here it should be noted that father and mother are not, the class father and the class mother is not related to each other in any way. Fine. So we'll start with the program. How do I start that? I'll start with hash include statements. Hash include iostream.h conio. Okay, and then I will have two classes. Since total is a friend of both, I need to do the forward declaration of a class. Once I write the other one, I will tell you why do I need to do that. Okay, let me just class mother. Okay, then let me write it in capital. Class father, private, float, salary, then public, void, input, then friend, float, total, and okay. See here, I have a class. This statement I will explain when I come here so that you will understand here. My class, my program starts with hash include statements, iostream.h, conio.h. After that, I have a class father. Okay, in that private section, I have float salary, that is sal is a variable which will take in the salary of the parent. Then in the public section I have void input, which is a member function of the class. That is, input is a function. I am not taking in any values here. I am not returning any values. After that, I have a friend function total. That is, total is a function which returns a float value and it is not a part of the father class. So I have made it as friend, and it takes objects from two classes, that is father and mother, because this total is a friend to both the father class as well as the mother class. So I told you yesterday's class that you need to pass the objects of the class to which it is friend to. So since total is a friend to both the classes, I will be passing objects of both. So when I come here, when I say mother, by that time you wouldn't have declared or returned mother. So then it will give you error. For that reason, you need to declare it. This is called forward declaration of a class. So this is called the forward declaration of a class. What do you mean by forward declaration of a class? The class, like you are telling the compiler, you would be having a class by the name mother. So it is forward declaration. Okay, what you are doing? You are telling the compiler that you are going to have a class called mother after this. And why do I need it? Because I am sending the objects of both. So when you are passing the objects of both, you have to do the forward declaration of the class here. And then total is a friend function. So total is not a part of father. And then it is a friend of both father and mother. Then that is why I need to pass the objects of both the classes to it. So it has one data member, one member function and one friend function, and I have closed my class here. Father class is closed there. Please make a note of this. And then now I need to write the input function, right? So void father scope resolution operator input. Okay. Cout, enter father's income. Okay, C in cell. This completes my function. I am taking in the father's income. I am storing it in the salary. Fine. Any doubts here? No, right? Then I have to write the mother class. So class mother private float salary and public void input. After that, friend. What is the name of the friend class? First it returns a float value. Then I have total, to which I am going to pass the objects of both. Okay. This completes my mother class, wherein I have one variable sal and then one member function input and then a friend function to which I am passing the objects of both the classes as arguments. Since this function is a friend of both, but it is a standalone function, it is not a member function of any of these. Fine. And then I need to, after this, what should I do? I need to write the input function for the class mother. How do I do that? Void mother scope resolution operator input. Fine. So cout enter mother's income. After that, I am taking the value. And this completes my class. Fine. Because that completes my class, I have only one member function. So I wrote both the father and the mother, and both of them have the same function called total as the friend. Now I need to write the friend function. How do I write it? As you all know, I had told in the last class also that friend function, when you are writing, you will not write the keyword friend. You will just start with the return type of the function. So return type is float, name of the function, total, and what am I passing? I am passing two arguments to it. Father f, f is the object, mother m, m is the object for mother, and it is going to return a float value. And we know that both the salaries I have declared it as float. So the sum of both the salaries will also be float only. Return f dot sal plus m dot sal. So f dot sal will give you the salary of the father, m dot sal will give you the salary of the mother, and you are going to return the sum of these two to the calling function. So this is how your friend function, like you will not be using the keyword friend here. It is only used inside the class to which it is a friend to. Here return type of the function, name of the function, and I takes two arguments, that is the objects of the two classes to which it is a friend to. And in friend function, to access the private data, you have to use object dot the variable. Directly you cannot access it. That is why I am going to return f dot sal will give you the father's salary plus m dot sal is the mother's salary. Where will it be returned to? It will be returned to the calling function. Please make a note of it. Then we will write main. Now I will be writing the main function. Void main. Clear screen. First I need to create an object for both father f, mother m. Okay. After that, to get the salary, first I need to take in the salary. So I will call f dot input. So it will, and when I use the object of the father class, it will call the input function of the father class. Next is m dot input will call the mother's class input function. So when it is input father f dot input, it will call the father class input function. M dot input will call you the mother's input function. So once when you execute these two, what are the functions doing? They are asking the user to enter the father's income and you are entering it. They are using the statement to ask the user to enter the mother's income, you are entering it, and both the times it would be stored in a variable called sal. Fine. Now, since the function is going to return a value, either it should be a variable, I should have declared a variable, or I can put it directly in a cout statement. So, what I will do, cout the combined income of the family, or I can say the total income of the family. Okay. Now I will call the function. How do I call it? Because see, when it is a member function, you have to use object dot like this, but then friend function is not a member function, it is not a part of the class. So how do I call it? Without object I can call it, and I need to pass the objects of the two classes to which it is friend to. So the total income will be this. This is the function call, and this will get substituted there, and it will say f dot sal plus m dot sal would be returned. Hope you have understood that what we are doing. So I am having two objects. I am calling with father class object that input function. I am calling with mother class object the other input function. Both of them will take the father's salary as well as the mother's salary. Then after that you are writing the income of the family. The total income is total f comma m, where f is the object of the class father, m is the object of the class mother, and then get ch. Please go through this. Hopefully you have understood friend functions for one class, more than one class, and then you have understood overloading in detail. So this would complete our function overloading chapter. So we completed function overloading chapter, and we'll be starting with a new chapter, that is lecture 9, that is chapter 9, which is constructors and destructors. Okay, and this is a 7 weightage of this chapter is 7 marks. You will have 1 2-mark question and 1 5 marks question from this chapter. Like you will get 1 2-mark and 1 5-marker question from this chapter. The total weightage of this chapter is 7 marks. So we'll start with that. We'll start with the objectives, like what are we going to study in this chapter. First is defining a constructor. Like first we should know definition and then how to write, and why do I need it, that is also very very important. Then the different types of constructor, that is default, parameterized and copy constructors. We are going to use all of that in our programs, like we'll write 1 or 2 programs for each. Dynamic initialization through constructors. Dynamic is nothing but anything which happens during runtime. And then constructor overloading. So we have done function overloading. We are in this chapter, we'll do constructor overloading. So constructor is also a special type of function. I'll tell you how is it different from your normal function. And we can overload constructors also. Then constructors with default arguments. We have done functions with default arguments. So I will do constructors with default arguments. During that time I'll give you one small example with functions with default arguments, and then we'll also do constructors with default arguments. And then what are the characteristics of constructors? What is a destructor? Like again, destructors are also a special type of function. And what is the need and characteristics of destructors? All this we'll be doing in this chapter. We'll start with definition. Before I read the definition, let me write one small example. So, for example, I have a class XYZ. For example, I have a class XYZ. In the private, I want to have int sum is equal to 0. Like for example, I want to give an initial value of sum to 0. And then I have public member functions void input and void show. Okay. So suppose if it's in void main, can I write this? Int sum is equal to 0. Yeah. Declaration and initialization is possible. Like I want to declare a variable and I want to give the initial value to it. Correct? Functions allows it. I can do that in this function, or any function for that matter. It will allow me declaration and initialization of a variable, wherein I cannot do this error. Here it will give me an error. That is, declaration and initialization cannot happen like this in a class. It gives you an error. Then how will I do that? Because I would want to give initial value to some variable. So how will I do that? That is done using constructors. Fine. Now we will go to the definition. Hopefully you have understood this. See, any function allows me to declare and initialize a variable. Declaring and initializing is nothing but declaring a variable and giving an initial value to it. Whereas in a class, when I declare a variable, this is the declaration of a variable. It states that I am going to have a variable called sum, which is going to hold a integer value, and the initial value, if I want to give it a 0, 1, 2, 3, it can be any integer. It will give me error because it does not, inside class here I cannot declare and initialize a variable. It has to be done in a member function only. Fine. So for that reason I would be using a constructor. Now we will go back to the definition of a constructor. Constructor is a special member function that is used to initialize objects of its class. Yes, it gives an initial value. It is called automatically when object is created. So whenever you create an object for a class, the default constructor is automatically executed. That is, it is automatically run. What I mean by this, I'll write a program and then I'll write the output and I will show it to you. You should just hear it is used for initializing. Why? Because initial declaration and initialization is not allowed inside a class. It has to be done in a member function only. So during the time of creation, if I want to give initial value, then I can give it in a constructor. Constructors are special functions which are used for initializing the objects of a class, and it is whenever you create an object, the default constructor, default means a constructor without any arguments, so the default constructor is executed. Now we will study class, the general syntax of a object. General syntax. See, this default constructor is executed whenever I create an object and when I do not pass any arguments. Like I create an object, just whenever I create an object, the default constructor would be executed. So the general syntax of a constructor. Class is a keyword and class name is a user defined name. That is the whatever name you give. and then you have private section wherein you can declare variables and member functions also, and then in the public section constructors should always be written in the public section of the class. Please make a note of this. Constructors are special functions which has to be written in the public section of the class, and they will have the same name as the class name. Okay, and then you write it. It can be written inside or outside a class, but it has to be written in the public section. It has to be declared in the public section of the class only. So let me write, for example, I want to write a class sum. Sum is the name of my class, wherein the S is in uppercase, UM is in the lowercase. So if I say I can say sum. So what is this? This also is uppercase UM. So when I say sum, the case, the spelling, everything matters. It has to be exactly the same as the class name, and this one represents it's a function, right? We don't write this brackets with others. Like if it's a function, I will use these brackets and then open and close brackets wherein the body of the constructor is written. This is a constructor, that is, it's a special member function wherein I can say A is equal to 10. I can give an initial value to A here. So a constructor is a special member function used for initializing objects of the class. This is the general syntax where class is a keyword and name of the class. In the public section, you will have the constructor written, and the name of the constructor and the class should be exactly same. The only difference is it's a function, this is a class. Yeah, and where it is automatically called whenever you create an object. So what does that mean? We'll write on program and I'll explain it to you. Or just go through this. Hopefully you've understood some part of it. Next is characteristics of constructors. This is a repeatedly asked 5-marker question. Every alternate question paper, PU board 12th grade question paper, you will have this question. What are the characteristics of constructors? So it's a very important question. The name of the, it's a 5-marker. Okay. The name of the constructor is same as the name of the class. That is what I told you. The name of the constructor, the only thing is constructor is a function and class is a class. The class name and the constructor name should be same. So when it is same, it means that it is automatically means that it is a constructor. That is, whatever spelling, whatever case you use, it should exactly match. The constructor should be declared in the public section of the class. That is what I told you. That is, a constructor should always be written in the public section of the class only. Then constructor, even though a function has no written type. So what does it mean? It means, what is the general syntax of a function? When I write a function, written type, name and argument list. Yes, if the function does not return any value also, I will write void. But then every function should have a return type. Name of the return type, name of the function and the argument list. This is how I declare a function, whereas constructor is also a function, right? But constructor will not have a return type, not even void. So constructors will not have a return type. It will only have the name, should always be the class name, and you can have an argument list. That type of constructor is a parameterized constructor, but you can overload constructors also. You can pass parameters, and constructor without any arguments is a default constructor. Fine. So it means that a normal function will have, it is compulsory that it will have a return type, and if it does not return value, it will be void. But the constructor will not have any return type. Both are functions, but that is the difference between a constructor and a normal function. This will not have a return type, and the name of the constructor will be same as the name of the class, and it should be declared in the public section of the class only. And arguments, yeah, you can pass arguments to a constructor. Hope you are clear with this. So this one we established. Next is, a class can have more than one constructor. So what does that mean? If you have more than one constructor, it is nothing but constructor overloading. That is more than one, right? So it is called constructor overloading, and all the class constructors should have the same name. Yes, when I say it's a constructor, it should have the same name as the class name. It will not have any return value, and in a class you can have more than one constructors, but then all the constructor will have the same name. That is constructor overloading. When the function has the same name with a different parameter list, what do you call it? Overloading, function overloading, right? Here also the constructor differs in the parameter list. Okay, the arguments you are passing to it, you may not pass any arguments. You may pass 1, 2, 3, or the order it is passed or the data type passed may be different. So that is called constructor overloading. But then when I say constructor, the class name and the constructor name should be same. It will not have a return type. And next is, if the class has more than one constructor, the constructor must have a different formal parameter list. Yes, otherwise again it will, like suppose if I have constructors of the same name here without any difference, so when I create an object, the compiler will not know which one to execute because both are of the same. So if I say int here, then yeah, because I am passing an integer argument to this and I am not passing anything. So when you create an object, while with that only you pass an argument, it will execute this or it will execute this. So the constructor, if you have more than one constructor, it should have a different formal parameter list. After that, if we have more than one constructor, which constructor should be executed depends on the types of values to pass to the class object when the class object is created. So the different ways of passing also, like calling a constructor using this one, implicit, explicit with equal to, that we will do that. But what does it mean? Like when you create an object, the constructors are executed. When I create an object, if I pass the parameters, like you have int, then you will pass two integer values, that constructor execute. If you don't pass anything, the default constructor will get executed. And then you have a constructor with one value, one parameter, then you pass one value, that constructor will get executed. So when you have more than one constructor, which constructor to be executed depends on the types of values passed to the class object when the object is created. Please have a look. Characteristics of constructors are very, very important. It's a commonly and repeatedly asked 5-mark question. So hopefully you have understood this. We'll start with constructor programs. So we'll start with the first one. Write a program to declare a constructor. So you will have to declare a constructor and demonstrate the constructor. How? Demonstrate the usage of it, like basically how automatically it gets executed when you create an object. So we'll start with the program. The program is you have to declare a constructor and then you should define it also. After that you need to you have to create an object to the class, and then you have to we'll write the output and see how it is automatically executed at the time of object creation. Fine. Okay. We'll start with the program. Hash include IO stream dot h hash include con IO dot h. After that, class, let me say class student. Fine. And now where should the constructor be declared? According to the rules, it should be declared in the public section of the class. So let me not write any variables because this is only I am writing a constructor and see how automatically it works. So let me say public and student. This is the end of my class. See here, I have student. It is declared in the public section of the class. Public section, same name as the class name. Yes. And it does not have any return type. Yeah, it does not have any return type. So this is a constructor. Now I will write it outside the class. The constructor can be written inside or outside the class. How will I write it? The general way is return type of the function. Since constructor do not return any value, so I will not be writing anything. That is, constructor, it does not return, it does not mean that it does not return any value. Actually, constructor do not have any return type. That is what I meant to say here. Constructor do not have any return type, so I will not be writing the return type. Now I will write the name of the classes belongs to, yeah, and then the scope resolution operator and name of the function. Fine. So any doubts in this? Constructor do not have any return type, so I have not written any return type. Otherwise the general syntax would be return type, name of the class, scope resolution operator, name of the function. Since it does not have a return type, there is no return type. Name of the class to which it belongs to is student. Scope resolution operator and name of the function is student, because it's a constructor, and constructor is a function which will have the same name as the class name. Fine. Let me put cout in student class. Okay. In student class. Constructor, let me put constructor also. In student class constructor, and I am closing my constructor here. Fine. So the constructor, whenever it is run, it should print in student class constructor. Fine. This is my class. Now let me write main for this. What would be the main? Void main clear screen. Now I have to create an object for this. So how do I create? Class name space the object name. Okay. I will say std1, one object is created. Student std2, 2 object. Okay. So yesterday 1, 2, 3 are the objects of the class student, and then constructor is not invoked using the dot operator, object dot. It automatically gets executed during the object creation. So I will not be calling it get ch, and I will close. So this is my program. That is, I have a class student. In the public section I have a constructor. This is a constructor because it does not have a return type and it has the same name as the class name. And then since there is no return type, I will write the name of the class to which it belongs to, open and close brackets, and the constructor, fine, and the constructor. Then in the constructor I am writing a cout statement is there. In that I am writing in student class constructor and ended. I am closing it here. Now I will write main. In that I have created 3 objects for the student class. How do I create? That is class name space the student name. So std1, std2 and std3 are the 3 objects for the class student. So there should be no doubts here. Let us write the output. So according to the characteristics, the constructor gets automatically executed whenever an object is created. Yes. So the first object I am creating here, std1. So the constructor should get executed. Yes, here. So what will it print me? It will print me in student class. Okay, in student class constructor. Then the next line is I am creating one more object std2. So when this object is created, what should happen? The constructor should get executed because this is a different object, this is a different object. So it will come here in student class constructor. Fine. And now I have the third one, that is student std3. Std3 is also the third object. So when I create std3, that time also the constructor should get executed. So once the constructor gets executed, what happens? It will say in student class constructor. Yeah. So the constructor is executed thrice because I have created 3 objects. So every time an object is created, the constructor gets executed automatically. Why is it automatically? Because you don't see any function call here, right? I am not calling the constructor function anywhere. So I am just creating an object. Whenever the object is created, the constructor is executed. When the constructor gets executed, I have a cout statement over there. So it gets printed. So 3 times this statement would be printed. That would be the output. So hopefully you will have no doubts. That is, student is the class name. In the public section you have to write the constructor. Constructor does not have any return type, not even void, and it has the same name as the class name. And then I am writing it outside and I am writing one cout statement here. Then after that I am closing my function. I am closing my class here itself. Here the class is closed, here the function is closed, and then I am writing my main, and in main I am creating 3 objects for the class student. So according to the characteristics of constructor, every time an object is created for the class, the constructor should get executed. So I have created 3 objects, so the constructor would be executed thrice. So every time you have this output statement here. Please have a look. Now we'll go to the second program. What does it mean? write a program to demonstrate how a constructor is used to initialize a data member of an object. Mainly, constructors are used for initializing or giving initial values, correct? That is what we studied. This one, in the first program, we saw how to write a constructor and how does it get executed. In the second one, and here I am talking about default constructors. I am not talking about parameterized or copy. When we do that, I will show you how to invoke that. But here automatically the constructor gets executed whenever an object is created. So we'll write a program to demonstrate how a constructor is used to initialize the data member of an object. So we'll start writing it. So how do we start it? Hash include iostream.h conio.h, then hash, no, I don't need anything else. So I'm saying hash include iostream.h, hash include conio.h. Then what do I do? So let me say class show. Like I want to show the working of the constructor, giving initial values and printing it. So let me name it as show. You can name any, you like identifier rules applies, you can name whatever you want. It shouldn't be a keyword and special characters. All those rules you need to keep in mind while naming a class. So let me name my class as show. Fine. And in the private section, I have int n, okay, an integer variable n. So in the public, I have my constructor, and then I have one more function, void display. Okay, so display is a member function, it is not a constructor. This is how my class would look. See, private int n, I have an integer variable n, and then I have a constructor called show. Since constructor does not have any return type, I have not written anything. And then I have one more member function called display, and without arguments and without return, it's void display, and I am ending my class here. Please make a note, then remaining I will write. Now let me write for show. So how do I write it? Return type of the function, constructor does not return any value, so it will not be there. Name of the class to which it belongs to is show, scope resolution operator, and the name of the function, the constructor is show. N was declared already, so I'll say n is equal to 20. I'm giving an initial value for n. Int n was already declared, so I say n is equal to 20, and I'm closing my constructor over here. So this is where I'm giving the initial value to the variable. Like when the program executes, when I create an object, when that time n will get the value 20, because constructor would be run and the value of n would be 20. Now I have to write the code for display. What was the return type of display? Void, name of the class to which it belongs to, show, and then the display function. So I'll say cout number n is equal to, so this completes my display, right? And I'm giving the initial value 20, and then whenever you're giving initial value means you're not taking it from the user, you're giving an initial value to it. And then n, I'm saying cout number n is equal to, then the value of n is printed for this. Now let me write my main. So void main, clear screen. Now let me create an object. Show, yes, let yes be the object and the class name is show. So how do I create an object? Class name space the object name. After that, if I say s dot, I need to call the function here and then get ch. So this would be the end of main. What would be the output? So what happens here? When I create an object, default constructor would be run. Yes, when I create this, the constructor would be executed. And when the constructor gets executed, what would be the value of n? N would be 20, because I have written n is equal to 20 there. I had given an initial value to it. And then I am calling the display function, because display is like a normal member function. So how do I call it? Object dot the function. So object is yes dot display. In display, what had I written? I have written the value of n is equal to n. So what would be the output? The value of number n is equal to 20, because 20 I had given the initial this thing. So this would be the output. This is how you give initial values to data members using constructor. This program shows how it works. Have a look. So we completed with this program. We completed the first programs. The third one we will do in tomorrow's class, and then we'll start with types of constructors and we'll do 1 or 2 programs for each. Please note down today's homework questions. The first question: what is a constructor? Give the rules for writing a constructor function. The next one: explain constructors with syntax and a programming example. So please note down these 2 questions. These are exam asked questions, 5 markers. When I say programming, it should be a proper program ready to execute. Okay, don't write code module here. Write it properly and neatly. So that is for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Till then, stay safe. Bye-bye. Take care.